Good morning. Today is March 27th, Wednesday, 2024. We continue with our Tanya studies, our daily morning Tanyas, and we're in lesson 30 out of 53. And let's just summarize where we are and what's our objective, what are we doing. Rabbi Shneur Zalman wrote the Tanya based on a great experience he had in consulting with people. That's what Rabbi is supposed to do, a good psychiatrist, a good psychologist. Understand people's problems, look at the problems from their perspective, not only from his, and try to come with the best advice, practical advice. So when he wrote the book, he sort of summarized his life experience, and the digging deeper into the book was supposed to be his disciples, that then will be able to, like him, talk to other people and help them with their life problems. If somebody just buy the book, if I go buy the book at the bookshelf and read it, it's helpful. But of course, I'm not an expert. So it needs to be somebody who is very knowledgeable, a rabbi. That's subjective. And there's people who are, you can get this Tanya lessons in much greater details and much deeper and maybe more useful than what we're doing here. Here we're just doing a very brief overview, kind of a layman's perspective, a human perspective. What is going on here? People have a problem, how to solve it. So Tanya so far basically looks in relations between a human being, between a person and God, and then between person, and between God and the person. And in this, Tanya is looking at everybody's different. Tanya breaks the whole humanity into 5 types. They call it Benoni, an average person. Then people who are more advanced level, like tzaddik, and then a complete tzaddik, and then Russia, the bad person, not a nice person, and very not nice person. Majority of humanity kind of falls in the middle ground, and the bulk of the Tanya teaching comes essentially to tell an average person on the street how to handle life issues. So in the chapter 26, it was a depression over sins. And Tanya said basically there's a 2 things that people handle as issue. One is material circumstances. And then Tanya talks about material circumstances being the relation between children, health, and financial matters. Those 3 things. And those, basically, Tanya comes to a conclusion after retrospection and thinking about it. You basically have to accept things. And Tanya goes through a method. How do you accept it? Easier said than done. If the kids don't call you often enough, if you've been quote unquote neglected for 6 months, for the year, it's very difficult to say, well, just accept that. Well, let's talk about it a little bit later. But that's one thing. Accept it. There's a meaning. Basically, somebody is, God forbid, sick. There is a reason for that. There are spiritual reasons. Tanya, Torah, Judaism doesn't believe. Things just happen as a fluke. It just happens. There is a reason. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't know what the reasons are. And we are not nowadays in position to criticize. Well, you get sick, obviously, because you didn't go to the church. You didn't go to the synagogue. You didn't go to a mosque. You didn't go to whatever. That's none of my business to judge it. That's God's job. But those things a person have to reconcile himself, between himself and the Almighty. Financial matters, you have to try. We have to try to work. We're not supposed to be sitting on a mountain 24 hours a day and just study Torah non-stop. It's a very noble thing, but you have to also have an occupation. You have to do something. Find balance in life. And if after all that you still don't have enough money to pay the mortgage and whatnot, if it's impossible, you have to review things a little bit. Or maybe Taj Mahal you want to buy is not for you, or maybe if it's a small apartment and you still don't have money, you have a bad luck. Sometimes you have to accept it and try to find happiness in it. And then you go through a method how to find this true happiness, and not just simply say, well, I don't care, I guess God doesn't care for me. That's not an attitude to take. You have to be positive attitude. Somebody has a 1-bedroom apartment, he should be just as happy as somebody that has 20 rooms apartment. Of course, somebody who has 20 rooms apartment should think about it. If there's a person across the street in a 1-bedroom apartment, maybe I should give him some money so he can get himself a 2-bedroom apartment or something like that. Personal responsibility has to kick in. We can't simply say, well, it's too bad for him. We have to help other people. But once that happens, once you do that and the person gets what he gets, the person, he or she, has to find happiness. Not sadness, but happiness in them. And the second portion was religious matters. That's matters between the human being, between a person and God. And then, by the way, the skipping to the, basically, we talked about if somebody wants to, let's say, physical measure, somebody's overweight, well, get on diet. And then you have to get a willpower not to eat this extra piece of cake. And that is a very practical thing to do. And when Tanya goes to a situation when you eat, everything has to be connected to God. I don't just eat because I love another two pizza pies to eat. One was enough, or maybe even 2 pies was enough. So control yourself. And Tanya goes through a method how to control yourself. People say easier said than done. I love pizza. I can't stop it. Well, Tanya teaches you how to be able to put a stop into that. Control yourself. Discipline. Eliminate junk in the house. If you say I have no room in the house, well, what do you have? There's 5 computers and 2 printers and the cables all over the place. Maybe you only need 1. Maybe you can live without a printer or something. Just no, I have to have that. Well, when in retrospect you find out maybe it's not really that relevant. And then time-wise, don't sit on TV for, oh, I'm so tired, came from work, I need to watch TV just to unwind. I'm watching for 2 hours, 3 hours, just falling asleep in front of TV. That's not the way to relax. Cut it out. Even get rid of the TV. Nowadays, there's junk on TV when you think about it. If you want to get the news, go in the morning, take 2 minutes, 5 minutes to see what the latest news are, and just move on. Don't get depressed or keep listening to the same news, the same problems in the world. It's all over internet. Just control yourself for not getting in there. So those things are Tanya covered. And then Tanya says, well, when you have problems of now the spiritual things between not spiritual, physical things that somebody is not treating you good, you have to, of course, as a human being, you have to try to make an effort to understand why and try to make peace with the person. And if it's not working, I guess you just have to walk away. And if the person is your neighbor, just your neighbor, it's not your son, it's not your sister, not your mother, not your father, not your relative, well, he doesn't like you, he doesn't love you, he doesn't care, nothing you can do about it. Just move on. And the person is really doing something nasty, throwing garbage at your door, call police and report it. Doesn't work, you have to move. And then just do that and accept it. Those things is what happens when somebody is not treating you right. Tanya also talks about that, brings the example of Joseph when the brothers didn't treat him good. He said it was God's, it meant to be. He was meant to be sold in Egypt, and ultimately become the tool to help his family to come out from starvation and save their lives. Well, but we don't know a priori up in front is somebody's doing something to us for our own good. It's all supposed to be for our good. Most of the things we don't understand why. But it's difficult to accept at the time when something bad happens to us, that that's all meant to be for the good reason. So, but if it's a category of people, not just your neighbor, but your family, let's say your kids or your parents or your siblings do not communicate with, don't treat you right, then it's more difficult. How do you do? Do you leave it go, and then not from your ego standpoint, but because you say, I can't believe that my kids are insensitive. They don't call me like for 6 months, for a year. Well, if you just mention to them even nicely, listen guys, I mean, I'm very hurt, upset that you don't call me. In many instances, you can turn them off. They can say, well, we're busy. We have our own kids. We have our own life. Dad, Mom, what are you complaining about? You have your place. You live. You're healthy. Thank God. Not much you can do in that situation. You have to pray that it will help. And the reason you worry about it, not because, well, I miss them. Well, that's true also. But you don't want a situation in your mind that I raise my kids and grandkids that uncaring people, unkind people. They don't care. They don't care for me. They might not care for other people. So that's really what bothers you. But it's understandable. But to impact on that, to change it, if you are 70 and they are 40, it's too late to really, they're not 4, they're not 2 years old. You're not teaching them manners. You didn't show them properly good example when they were young, unfortunately. But too late now. But you can still pray, you can still communicate. Well, you don't have a good heart to mind talk with them, but okay, you get a postcard at least, you get an occasional call, how things going. We want a new television, we want another refrigerator. Oh, wonderful, what model it is, such and such. Well, is it big enough for the freezer to freeze 2 chickens? Yes, it is. Great, okay. Stick with that. Not very esoteric, elevated discussion about meaning of life, about the universe, about God, about even whatever. But you have communications, and then you pray that perhaps God will help them elevate to the level that they can talk about substance, not just. I'm not saying anything wrong with buying a new refrigerator, material things, go on vacation. That's great. Skiing, golfing, basketball, that's good. But you have to remember that other people, you have to think about it. And if they don't, just maintain your cool and accept the way things are and pray. And it oftentimes helps. All of a sudden, you get a call, hey, Dad, I haven't called you for a long time. I just dawned on me that how insensitive that was of me. Okay, honey, don't worry about it. I'm glad you called. Let's talk. So, those are advices that Tanya gives you, not in this direct way, like I'm saying, but basically in the ways that Tanya teaches you how to handle difficult situations. Then Tanya says, but when you have depressive thoughts, when it's really difficult, it's not, yesterday we talked about it, it's not like you just brush it off. Don't worry about it, just put it behind you, don't concentrate. Yeah, Tanya says you have to think about it. You think about why it happens. You have to make yourself miserable, as strange as it might sound. Oh, nobody cares for me, and why? Because I'm horrible. I didn't teach my kids good manners early in my life. My parents didn't teach me what I do. I mean, it's too late right now. That's okay to go to that. Most psychiatrists will tell you it's not. But the difference is you can only do it for a short time. Let's say for an hour. Maybe when you do vidui and tachnun every morning in the synagogue, you're praying for about, 5 minutes? Sorry for my sins. Maybe those times you concentrate and think about really making yourself miserable by admitting that you did some horrible things. But once it's done, move on, and the rest of the day, don't focus on that. And then also, Tanya says, and maybe you can do it maybe once a month, or once a day if you want, or once a week. On Tuesday between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. for 1 hour, you sit in a dark room, think about and make yourself miserable, yes, by realizing how horrible you did things in the past. But once it's done, don't concentrate on this anymore. And Tanya says, and you have to assume that after you did it, God has heard you and He has forgiven you. And now you took all this bulk of negativity and you expressed yourself, you poured your heart out, not just in your thoughts, but even in speech and talk, and it relieved you. Maybe you cry and you weep and you feel miserable. But once that's done, it's relieved. You know what people say when you cry? The tears help relieve pain. So what? Emotional pain, even physical pain. And after that, be happy. Go for a walk, go to work, go play basketball, go visit friends, call your acquaintances, call your children, do this, and no longer focus on the negativities. So it's both. Yes, you have to address it. You can't just simply I locked it in a box and I pretend not to have it. That's a common psychological family counseling idea. No, you have to look into it. You have to say, I did wrong. I was wrong. And if somebody wronged you, you have to also look at it. He was wrong. It hurt me. I didn't want to do it. But what do I do about it now? I tried this, I tried that, doesn't work. I guess I just let it go and help the God. Eventually will tell him, listen, Bob, John, Thelma, you're not treating your brother correctly. You're not, and the call will come when you least expect it. 2 o'clock in the morning, wake you up and say, I just called to say I'm sorry for all these years. Your prayers have been answered. There's no guarantee, but there's always a hope. So 2 things. That's the psychological method that Tanya tells you. That's what Tanya means. Live your life joyfully. It doesn't mean that pretend there's no problems. but address these problems at certain times. And like I said, we do Tachnun. If you do in Tachnun, Alchet, at Yom Kippur, we do it on fasts. We're doing on every morning, but we do it for a short time every morning. 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Concentrate, close your eyes, don't worry what the guy next to you doing, and pour your heart out, cry, feel miserable, and then open your eyes and they say, God has forgiven me. And He really did. And move on in His life. Then you really, because then you say, why should I be sad? I already did my session. I already did my heart crying out. I don't need to do it continuously. I can't just, God doesn't want me to continuously keep walking around at work and crying, I'm so miserable. You did it. You did it at 6 o'clock in the morning until 6:05 and you moved it on. That's what Tanya is teaching us. I hope it's helpful. So if you have a particular example, if you get, maybe tomorrow we'll find an example, how do you handle a situation with, and of course I think also again, it all comes down to two issues for an average person: health and money. Basically, when people if somebody is healthy, everything else is minor or nothing, or just about nothing. So to address the issues of health, that's the most important thing for most people. Then the next one becomes issue with family. I think it comes even before issues of financials. And we just mentioned how to handle things with the family. That should be able, everybody should be able to handle it. Financial, it's also doable. Health, very difficult. If God forbid somebody has a bad disease, and you can explain all you want about how you have close to God, but if it hurts, people see time and time again that people are not drawn to open up the Torah or prayer book and do it. They just in pain. They just take pain medications, and we have to empathize and sympathize with people like that, and not to tell them, well, if you just learn Tanya, learn Torah, everything will be okay. That's a very insensitive thing to do. So you have to feel, and that's maybe where the humanity can help. When we all Jewish people and non-Jewish people too, if we all pray and right now think about it, somebody is miserable in pain, he's not listening to our conversation, to our lesson, he or she is just hoping to survive, that doesn't die, God forbid. When we pray for that person, even we don't know who it is, but I'm sure there are people right now in the world miserable. If we now collectively, as you're watching this video, and you can join me in praying to help whoever person, all of a sudden it goes to God, and God, Mizrat Hashem, please God, will help them. That's another powerful mechanism. And all of a sudden, the miracle happens to them. And they won't even know why. All of a sudden, the guy just gets off the bed and the problem disappeared. And he doesn't know why. God's miracle. Well, God's miracle happened. He prayed, or she prayed, but we also prayed for him. And that's a mass, Klal Israel, mass of prayer combined together is an incredibly powerful mechanism. I think what happens today in the world is that message for us to start doing that without necessarily saying tomorrow, well, it's a good idea, tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, American time, or Israeli time, or Australian time, we'll all pray for the better world. That's not a bad idea to do. Sometimes Jews do that. Prayer phone, worldly prayer phone, once a year, once a month. But even without it, every time, if I pray for somebody in Australia, somebody in India, somebody in Sweden, not feeling good, a human being, and you think the same, and other people think the same, collectively all that energy gets together and that healing power will come down. And that's a message I believe today God is sending to us. With all the wars, with all the destruction, with all the conflict, that's a message God is telling us. Hey guys, get it. Stop thinking, what other car do I need to buy because I want to improve my gas mileage, kilometrage, or I want to get another apartment because 4 rooms is not enough. I have a billiard room, or have an extra expansion for the garden. Maybe don't put that much emphasis on that, and put some emphasis on helping other people. And when we do, that true joy, as Tanya teaches us, will come to the world, Mizrat Hashem, with the help of God, and with your help, and with my help. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow.